Hello, I am now starting the second book in the series Life Beyond Silence. The title is Losing Touch with Reality. I just finished my first podcast of the first book, Not a Victim, a Survivor, Life Beyond Domestic Violence and Rape. This is the second in the series. And again, it's titled Losing Touch with Reality. When I started doing the podcast, I wanted to let listeners hear my story and hear it directly from me. And if they have any questions or comments, they're more than welcome to send them to me, and I'll do the best I can to answer the questions. In the first book, I went over the first part of my life. This book starts after I had decided to go to be with Phil. It was a very difficult time in my life. I think I had lost all touch with reality. I think I was severely depressed, in a shell of the person that I once was. I've been through so much in my life that at times I think I just was torn. I always wanted happiness, a good husband, a good life. I wanted to give my children things that other people had. I think I was always looking for something that I felt like I had been missing, and I was hoping that life would work out for me. And in the first book, you're brought through the first part of my life, and you can see bad decision after bad decision. I'll admit that. I made a lot of bad decisions, and a lot of decisions that I severely regret. And I wish I could go back and change them, but unfortunately you can't. In this book, Losing Touch with Reality, I think, for lack of a better term, I think I was just going insane. I had no ability to make the right decisions. And I take full responsibility for that. But I think that, I should have gotten help. I should have. And I didn't. Yeah, I wrote a book and that was therapeutic. But at the start of this one, I was in need of professional help. I was in need of someone intervening in my life. And I didn't have that. Not unless you count my first husband dragging me to court to take my oldest child away as intervening. But it was it is difficult to put into words how I felt or what I went through during the time with Phil. I just couldn't make sense of things. And I wanted to, and I wanted to make good decisions. I did. But looking back, I just kept making things worse. Digging a bigger hole, so to speak. Everything I did seemed to turn to shit. But I'm sure I'll do a lot of talking in this one over and above the actual manuscript. But I just want to start. You just gotta jump into it, right? I just want to get it started so that I can get it, I guess, so that I can get it started, and then I can talk it through as we go. So, when I decided to leave Kentucky, it was hard. And I wrote all that at the very end of my first book. I decided that for my son, to be with his father at such a young age may outweigh my oldest, who had told me that it wasn't going to be so hard to go to her father's if she had to, because for years he had been trying to tell her that, she would have her own room, she wouldn't have to share with brothers and sisters, that being with him was going to be so, for lack of a better term, Disneyland dad type. Later on, that would prove not to be the case, but at the time she was trying to console me. I think she saw how torn up I was. Looking back, I should have never talked to her about it. She was only 12. But all I did was cry. All I did was have my mind jumbled with, what if I do this, or what if I do that, or, maybe I can do this. And Phil would call me and he would tell me he was so sorry and that he would do anything to make it up to me. But it was my decision. He never really tried to beg me to come. I think in some way he was okay with me not coming. But I think he knew what he had cost me. And I think he knew that he screwed up big time. And he did. Anyway, for whatever reason, and I don't have a good one, I made the decision to take my daughter to my mother and leave her with my mother. But I knew that, my mother might eventually get her from my ex, especially after my daughter was old enough to say she wanted to live with my mother. But I knew by leaving her with my mother, my ex was going to come. Matt was going to come and use his custody rights as a father to get my daughter, and that for a little bit at least she would be living with him. But to be honest, that again, I too did not. Even though I didn't believe his Disneyland dad thing, he had never been that type of person. And I knew he drank. But I honestly thought he wasn't going to be that bad. He was going to try because he had finally won against me. So I thought, yeah, she's going to have a decent life. She's going to have a roof over her head. She's going to have food. She's going to have clothes. She's going to grow up like most kids. I didn't think he would be a terrible dad. And he was. And I'm really sorry for that because I didn't see that coming. I knew he was remarried. I knew he presented in court all these years that he could do just as good as me. So I felt like, okay, he's gonna rejoice in getting her from me, and he's gonna give her a decent life. That was, from what I have later learned, farthest from the truth. I learned it wasn't the home that he had proclaimed it would be. And I learned that she was really hurt. However, some of that I feel like was he did that because he never really cared. And I should have seen that. I feel like I made a huge wrong decision that has cost me a lifetime with my oldest daughter. And I'll explain more in a little. Anyway, what ended up happening was I had Phil come up with a truck, a big U-Haul, and he got there in late evening hours, and I had as much ready as I could have, and we just, to be honest, I don't even know how we did it, because I'm not that strong of a person, but I was a lot younger then. But to be honest, I don't even know how we did it. But we worked for hours, and we got things on the truck, and I just, like I said, I don't even know how we did it. But we loaded up that truck as full as we could get it. And we left. We left my my kids call it the gray house, but we left the gray house in Henderson, Kentucky, which is where we lived at the time. And he drove the truck, and I drove my car, and we drove from there to Lake Charles, Louisiana. And it was the first time I'd ever been to Louisiana. It was the first time I'd ever, I guess you would say, done some kind of abrupt, crazy move like that in the middle of the night. But we drove, and I remember my car didn't have very good suspension, so there was a patch of road that was like kind of one hill after another, and I remember kind of bouncing over those hills because we were traveling at such a pretty good pace. Phil was a truck driver by trade by then, and he said, stay pretty close to me and it'll cut down on travel time and gas and things like that. And I don't know what he told me. I just remember we had some kind of little radio thing set up between us, and we were trying to like shoot down the road and get there in pretty good time. Phil had to go back to work, not that day, but he had to go back to work, so it was imperative that we get the move on the road and we get down there and get moved into a trailer that he had found that we could rent. And we had my 3 kids in tow, and I had left my oldest daughter with my mom. And here's the thing, from what I remember my mom saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And I remember me thinking she just didn't understand. She wanted me not to leave her, and that would have been the right choice. But she wanted me to stay in Henderson and to just stay away from Phil. It wasn't like my mother and me had a good relationship. We didn't. I really didn't have anybody close to me to turn to. So to me it was like, okay, she wants me to hold on to my oldest daughter, and I agree. I wish I could. But at least my older daughter's going to have her. Who's going to have my son? Just me. He's going to lose out on having a dad. I didn't know what to do. I had set my mind up to do this, and I was going to do it just like all the other mistakes I made. I was just going to do it. For lack of better judgment, yeah, I was going to do it. So I did. And we drove all night. We went that last little bit. We weren't like right behind each other. And I remember I knew kind of where I was going. So I just kept driving. And I was on I-10, and I think that's the main road, and I was flying. And I remember when I came into Lake Charles, it came in, and then as it was going out, which I didn't know where to turn, but I went over the Lake Charles Bridge, which it's called something else, but Calcasieu Bridge or whatever. But I went over it, and I knew I was leaving Lake Charles as quick as I had got there. And I pulled off at a gas station, and I had his family's number, because his adopted dad lived there, and his sister, and his adopted stepmom, and I mean, there was some kin of his in Lake Charles. And so I pulled off, and I made the phone call, and I said, I'm lost. You know, I'm here with my kids in the car, and I'm lost. I got separated from Phil. He's got the U-Haul truck, but I'm lost. And they said, where are you? And I told them, and they said, we'll come get you. And I was like, please, because I don't know what I'm doing. And on the way down there, I had started my period, and I had bled through my clothes onto my car seat, and my kids, the two that were with me, were asleep, and it was really early in the morning, and I was standing at a, a phone, outside phone, making a phone call, and payphone, and I was standing there, and I remember, I was kind of itching a little bit, but I was looking down, and there was ants kind of crawling on my feet, and I was barefoot. But I remember coming from Kentucky, I didn't think much of it. We have ants too, everybody does. But I remember I felt like they were biting me, but I wasn't really for sure. So they got there, I got back in the car, they got there, and I followed them to the trailer park, which was huge. I mean, more trailers than I've ever seen in my life. In Kentucky, we do have trailers, but usually it's like a few trailers. If you have them all parked together, nobody ever has like hundreds and hundreds of trailers. But in Lake Charles, they did. So we drove there, and we got there and pulled up, and the U-Haul was there, and Phil was already unloading, and we worked to unload the truck. And I remember I remember his half sister told me that as soon as we got settled in, to come over that day so that we could eat and, I guess meet everybody. And I was like, okay. And I remember I was breaking apart, like literally starting to just crack. I'd held it together from the time that we left. I had been so determined to do what I did that I'd held it together pretty good with the quick move and the following him. And then when we got separated, I had started to fall apart. And when we moved into and the trailer was nice. It was a nice trailer. I didn't have any problem with the trailer or the trailer park or seeing Phil again. It was my breaking point, and I started to crumble. And I remember Phil was saying that he was going to run the truck to where it needed to go, and I was in the back of the trailer, and I remember I just started crying, like breaking down and crying. And I had sent my daughter to take care of the two younger ones, and in the other part of the trailer, and I was just falling apart. I still had blood on me. I was um, I was just standing there, collapsing. And Phil said, "Tell me what I can do. If you need me to load the truck back up and drive you back to Kentucky, I will. What do I need to do?" And I said, "I can't. Don't you understand? I left her. I can't load the truck back up and go back. I literally have screwed up. There's no there's no going back. If I go back, he'll still be able to take her from me because I left. My mom won't even give her back because I left. There's no going back." And I was crying, and Phil was trying to, I don't know, he was trying to kind of hold me, but not. He was trying to tell me that he would do anything to fix it. We could load it back up, if we could go back. And I said, "No, we can't. We can't go back. We can't go back. And I have kids in there that I have to take care of. I have to get these bloody clothes off. I have to find something to put on. And I have to just continue to get up every day and make this work." I just remember I was a shell of a person. But it was like, and I know a lot of people probably wouldn't even believe this, but it was like my grandfather and God was picking me up off the floor and telling me that yes, maybe I did make the wrong decision, but for those kids in the other room, I had to make this work and hope for the best. That's all I could do, was just hope for the best. Hope that Phil had indeed made his mind up to make it up to me. I had to hope for that my mother could somehow hold on to my first daughter, even though I knew Matt would immediately take her. But I just felt like all I could do was hope for the best. Hope that she would eventually be able to go to my mom's and live. Hope that I could manage with my other 3 children to not let them hurt for their oldest sibling, which I knew they would, especially my second daughter. I knew that it would be hard for her. But I just wanted to make it as normal as I could, if that was even possible. I just wanted to make it work. Every bad decision that I've ever made, I had good intentions, but they never worked out. And it wasn't like I was fooling myself that this was going to somehow work out. I wasn't. It was just that I was trying my best. You know, you just gotta pray, and you just gotta try to make it work. And in some stupid, crazy way, I just thought, if you try hard enough, maybe you can make it work. Looking back now, I know what a horrible decision it was. But starting this book off, my intention was to tell you, yes, it was a horrible decision, and one that I would never be able to take back. And even at my age now, I've never been able to undo that horrible wrong. I get that. But starting this book off, it was as though I got down there and I realized far too late, but I realized what a horrible decision it was. No matter what the outcome for my son was, it was something that I couldn't take back. And at that very moment, as I was broken, and Phil was telling me he would load up the truck and we would be on our way back to Kentucky, I couldn't do that. I literally knew that I couldn't do that. And for an instant, it was like God and my grandfather was telling me, you gotta pick yourself up off the floor. You gotta do what you can to just get through this and see what happens. You gotta make the best of it as you can, because you've got 3 other kids in there that are dependent on you. I remember Phil telling me the same thing he did in Kentucky, which is he was sorry and he would do the very best he could to provide for me and the kids, and also to never make me regret it any more than I already did. He said he'd make every effort to make it up to me. Not that you could, but he just wanted to try to make it up. And all I could think is, you can't make it up for what happened. But in my head, I was thinking that he was somehow just saying that he was truly sorry for what happened, and he knew what he did. I don't know if that makes any sense now, but to me at the time, it was all that he could say. And I remember getting in the bathtub in the back bedroom where we were and just trying to scrub off the blood, trying to, in a sense, scrub off my mistake. I just tried to get myself together. He took the truck back, and I guess his family dropped him back off. And because at that time all we had was one vehicle, and um, he said they invited us to eat, and we need to eat, and we're all tired. But do you want to go to my family's? And I said, yeah, I guess so. So we drove the kids over to meet his family and eat, and then we were going to come back, and everybody was going to crash probably. I don't even remember what the day included after my breakdown. I just remember I just, again, was walking around like a zombie. But at least my son was thrilled to see his dad. And my daughter was excited, I guess, to kind of explore the neighborhood, which she quickly met friends, which was a godsend, a true godsend, that my middle daughter met friends as almost as soon as we got there. Or I guess you would say as soon as we got there. And my youngest daughter played with her little brother, and I'm sure both of them crashed out pretty quickly. I know I did. I was exhausted, and I crashed out, and Phil crashed out, and I don't remember the rest of the day. I really don't. I don't even remember the first part of the first week, other than we were trying to like sort through things and make the trailer look as much like a home as we could. And Phil was working, and we were barely scraping by. I wasn't working, but I had made phone calls to get to work. I don't remember much about that first little part, to tell you the truth. I just don't. The main thing I remember is seeing the trailer, putting things away, making it look like I guess you would say a welcoming home for my children and me, and us trying to make it work. And there were times that I would cry, and I remember I would try to cry and then get myself together as fast as I could so that my kids wouldn't be sad. I didn't want them to be sad. I knew my son didn't really understand. All he understood was he had his sisters and his dad, and maybe he thought that his oldest sister was, I don't know, on vacation or something. After all, he had been used to her going to see her dad, so I don't know, maybe he didn't even notice. My youngest daughter did real good. She was very helpful for her little age. She enjoyed the sunshine. Louisiana has a lot better weather than Kentucky does for the most part. It was probably going to be a perk for me that there was not winters. It was basically 2 seasons, summer and possibly a fall season, but there was never, for the most part, any winter like what we had been used to. And then my middle daughter, who had lost her best friend because of my decision, was doing good. I didn't know how she was on the inside, and I didn't want to talk to her too much about it because I knew it had to be hurting her even more than it hurt me. But we were both struggling to pretend it was going to be okay. I think my middle daughter thought no matter what, they would always be tied at the hip. And I think she also thought that there'd be times that she could go see her. And so she just tried to make the best of it. And it truly did help that she met friends right off the bat. And those friends are still friends of hers today. But they were very close with her during those years, and I truly appreciate that. I also found a good friend in their mother and became very close with her, and that helped me probably hold on to my sanity a little bit. Having someone that I could share all my stories with and talk to about my hardships, it helped. But I'm going to stop here and let this be the first episode. And I hope that you take the time to listen to my first book and follow along with me with my second book, Losing Touch with Reality. But I'm going to stop here for now. I get a little long-winded and I don't mean to. Have a good day. Thank you.